from the IPCC studies by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Studies that climate change is going to exacerbate these factors. So I don't think, and I'm not preaching, oh, these are climate refugees. I've still used the word environmental displacement because I think environmental displacement is the overarching caption, and climate is only a subset of that. And we don't, as yet, have the data to specifically isolate it, but we do know two things. One, some of those causal factors, like the extreme weather events, affect migration, and then climate change makes those worse.
So it hasn't exacerbated.
Oh, definitely. That was I
don't know causal.
Well, it depends. I think on sea level rise, that's a singular cause of climate change, right? I also agree. When I was looking at this, it was puzzling to me. Why are we saying climate change? The climate change effects are going to be slower, and they are going to contribute to another cause rather than global warming directly. How does global warming directly cause people to move? I mean, maybe it will if it gets hot enough. People will have to move, but it leads to less food production. Their food security goes down because the agricultural conditions change. So, is that responsive? Yeah.
Other comments on that?
I think I do agree. In my research, I think we do all agree that there are complex of causes that impels or compels people to move. And I believe that sudden, episodic, extreme weather conditions, such as hurricanes, typhoons, that do have casualties and as well as damage to property, is the trigger. Is the immediate trigger of any movement or displacement. On the other hand, from the experience of the Philippines and other, migrant sending countries, we have to take into consideration the aggressiveness of recruitment agencies that really travel from end to end of the country to the remotest parts of the country to try to convince people to become domestic helpers or sailors and things like that, using the climate change, erosion or desertification or lack of production in the area as excuses for people to move. Not to mention, of course, the aspirational aspects of people who really want to better their lives. But this cause is a human-led, motivation, or this is not accidental. In the Philippines, you have thousands of agencies that are roaming across the country, and you only need a disaster to convince people to go, to other countries. So they use this opportunity to recruit people, in tragic natural disasters, as well as in, occasional, even if the natural disasters don't happen, but it happens annually, people will then think about, will I ever improve my life if these typhoons come every year and erases all my earnings? So then it becomes like a good enough excuse to migrate permanently.
One more quick response on climate change. What is also happening, and there was a report released yesterday that even the IPCC report last year is too weak in terms of climate change effects. There are environmental cliffs, and they're happening far quicker than we think. I mean, we keep hearing that the Canada ice sheet is breaking off. We know the glaciers are melting. So if this is happening faster, to the extent we reach an environmental cliff, it may be that these extreme weather events happen more quickly, more seriously, and then we see more climate change. I think they've attributed the heat wave in Europe a couple of years ago to having been directly climate change. And there are some that are so, when you look at the data, so unequivocally extreme that they are saying this is climate change is causing this, which then that effect has an influence on people and was one of the causal factors to move.
Let me add an anecdotal remark here, coming originally from a very cold place. And I would mention here that where I grew up, in southern Michigan, no one ever went up north except in the summer, as we call it, up north in Michigan. A few hardy souls, mostly hiding from the law, would live up there. Now, some of our major cities' populations are up north. These are not people who are fleeing climate change. These are people who are seeing climate change and saying, suddenly it's livable up there. Suddenly it's not 8 feet in snow all year round. You're seeing this also, I think, in some effects in Canada. So there is a migration generated by climate change, which is not just forcing you out of something, but opening up greener pastures in what were icy pastures before that. And that, I think, has not been much looked at in this whole phenomenon either. There were some other comments on this discussion. I saw some hands on this side of the table.